Hey, folks, it's that literary lady again, and you're listening to the 12 Days of Christmas. And on the 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me author Pat George Walker, also known as Sister Betty. Hi, Pat. How are you today?
I'm fine, and you keep this literary show going, okay? You leave that singing alone. Stay in your lane, girl. Stay in your lane.
Okay, thank you. I never admitted that I could sing, but hey, thank you for being on the show today. And for those of you who don't know who Pat, is it George? G.R.J. Walker is, and shame on you if you don't, but she is an author, and she is the person or persona behind the funny comedian Sister Betty. Sister Betty has kept us in stitches. In Sister Betty, God's Calling You, Sister Betty, God's Calling You Again, Cruising on Desperation, Mother, Eternal, and Everlasting's Dead, Somewhat Saved, and other funny titles. Wow, you've been writing a lot and for a long time. How long have you been writing?
Well, getting paid to write has only been for about maybe, 12 years or so. But it seems like I've been writing forever. I remember being in the third grade and being prompted to write and tell stories. And most recently, when I caught up with my third grade teacher, who is still living, she said she wasn't surprised that I would become a writer because I was the biggest liar she had in the third grade. So you see, it all went together. That's what she said.
I'm cracking up, and our audience, you'll be cracking up throughout this interview because not only is she an author, she is a comedian.
Oh, yeah. I love to laugh. Don't come around me if you can't laugh.
Speaking of laughing, how did you get Sister Betty's character?
Well, actually, that came about from something serious that happened. Many, many years ago, my younger was burned in a fire, and we lived in the South at that time. We were staying in the South, rather, with my grandmother. And, down there, back in those days, they didn't have a doctor that they could run you to, but they always had somebody in the community who knew a little something about herbs and medicine and things of that nature. So when my sister, who was about 8 at the time, received the burns on her throat, they called this woman named Miss Irene, and she was this little short lady, dressed all in white, and she looked real strange to me, and she came to the house, and I remember them putting the kids out of the room, but we were peeping through the door, and I saw her take out a handkerchief, and she had some kind of stuff in it, I don't know what it was, and she spat into it. And then she started mumbling or speaking in tongues or whatever over the handkerchief, and she put it over my sister's throat. And in less than a month, my sister was up and around, and she was a dark brown-skinned child. And when she passed away at the age of 60, she still didn't have a scar.
Wow.
And those are third-degree burns. So I always remember the feeling of awe that I had about Sister Betty. But then, going forward, being a PK kid, both my parents, one Pentecostal and one Baptist, put that together with the way I felt about, Miss Irene or Sister Betty and some crazy church folks that I've met along the way, and voila, you have Sister Betty.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, I know Sister Betty is a main character in a lot of your books. Is she the main character in all of your books?
No, there's been a couple of books which she has not appeared, or she might have had a cameo appearance. But it seems like whenever I venture off into a situation like that, whether it was Don't Blame the Devil or somebody sitting in my bed, my editor tells me that the readers, they go ballistic. Oh, no, we got to have Sister Betty back. So even when I signed my last contract, it was based on the fact that I would deliver more Sister Betty books. I said, okay, I'll do it. Plus, they were paying me, so.
Right. They're paying you. I understand that. Now, you're also a comedian, right?
Yes. Yes.
How did you get started in that?
Well, actually, when I started writing the Sister Betty stories back in the 70s, I would do monologues and things like that because I really didn't want people to think I was, lampooning the church. But at the same, I got tired of people coming to church and cutting up, acting a fool. I wasn't able to enjoy the message, as I'm sure many others weren't, but I couldn't hit them. So I would go home and write these little funny stories about them, and hopefully when I did the monologue, they would see themselves and cut it out. Going forward, when I started doing Sister Betty in earnest, doing the books and whatnot, I still had that same thought in mind. I don't want people to think I'm lampooning the church because of the characters' names. Like there was Deacon Laid Hands and Reverend Not Enough Money and Sister I'm a Hellraiser and all those folks, So I started doing comedy. And the next thing I know, I started getting paid. And then I got a phone call at my home one time from the same agency that represents Sinbad and a lot of other comedians asking me could they represent me too. So what's even more amazing to me is that when I look back over my life and I see how many tragedies I've had to endure and the violence and things of that nature, and to know that I've come to a point where God has brought me to a point where I can not only laugh about it, but get paid too and help others to laugh. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Now, are you currently acting as a comedian, or?
Oh yeah, I just came back from California the night before Hurricane Sandy hit my community.
Okay. Now I have to ask you because I know it happens. Anyone in your church ask about your books or ever ask you, are those characters about me?
Well, let me put it to you this way. The character of Mother Prayon, Sasha, as most people call her, I nailed her so well that people from the real Sasha's church approached me one day and told me I should be ashamed of myself because they knew immediately who I was talking about.
Oh, my goodness.
And Sister I'm a Hellraiser is based on my cousin Myra, who is very proud of that fact. Although she's now at the point where she's gotten saved, and she asked me, will I'm a Hellraiser, get saved? I told her no. Somebody got to take a hit for the team, so it might as well be her.
Take one for the team, huh?
Take one for the team. But most of the things that Ima says and does, I've seen my cousin do.
Oh. Now, it's interesting, all the names that you use. How do you come up with the names? I mean, they're all funny and they're probably all appropriate, but how do you come up with those names?
Well, when I first started doing Sister Betty books and the monologue, I couldn't come out and say, well, Mother Red or Sister Theola Brown or whatever, but whatever the annoying habit they had or the flaw that I felt was in their character that God was giving me, I just would name them after that character flaw. I'm a Hellraiser, raised hell. Reverend Not Enough Money never got enough money. Bishop was never called. Good and well he was never called to be a bishop. So, it was characters. The character names came about like that.
Oh, my
Next thing I know, they took off.
You are very, very creative. I will definitely tell you that. Now, in your newest book, Holy Mayhem, we have Patience and Joy, whose last name happened to be Cash and Carry.
Yes. Yeah, they are.
I'm going to have Pat read a tidbit from her new book, but I've been reading the book, and it starts off, and Pat, if you cannot give any spoilers, but it starts off with Patience and Joy. Actually, I believe it was Patience and Joy are unemployed, and one of them goes into the church and catches a deacon they didn't catch him in the act, but doing different
that
things.
Was Joy.
Right, okay, Joy, but they know what's going on. So can you go ahead and read us with a little tidbit from the book?
Well, what I'd like to, or what I had set aside to read was one of my favorite characters from the book, which is Porky. And Porky had been in other books. He was in Sister Betty, God's Calling You Again, and he's the owner of the El Diablo Soul Food cafe down there on Tomaine Avenue. He's a wannabe thug.
Let me stop you right there. The L what?
he has a restaurant down on Tomaine Avenue.
Tomaine, a soul food restaurant with a Mexican name. Lord have mercy.
So the location should give you a clue, you know. But in this particular story, Porky is also Percy, Joy and Patience' godson, who is a detective. Porky is also his father. So Joy, Patience, and Porky are actually first cousins.
Okay.
So I wanted to read a little bit about the introduction of Porky into the story.
Okay.
Okay. By the way, Joy said, trying to follow Patience's lead, yet keeping her voice edgy, where is that sweet and sour pork daddy of yours? Percy opened his mouth to answer, but not fast enough. A stuttering and whimpering sound rang out, like a bear with the lips had gotten a paw caught in a steel trap. It couldn't have come at a worse time. Barreling through the front door, he looked deranged. I'll kill them trifling, nasty dogs, low-down scallywags, thieving pig kisses. Joy, Patience, and Percy's heads popped up. They were too far down the foyer to have heard the front door when it had first opened, but they recognized the intruder's voice. Percy pounded his fist on a nearby wall. He began breathing hard, sputtering like air leaving a balloon. I told him to wait in the car. Porky, with his fat stomach wobbling side to side like Jell-O on steroids, sailed down the foyer. He had his lips twisted, still cussing, waving his one good hand about with his other hand held captive in a sling. My place got hit last night. They tore it apart. His mouth quickly shifted into overdrive, making less sense every time it opened. Did Percy tell you? The rubber from the flip-flops on his feet squealed to a halt. He began rocking side to side. Somebody got me. His dark brown face turned from ashy to shining, and he looked like someone had polished his fat cheeks with Vaseline. How does this happen? I can't even go away to do a little fishing with my one and only son without somebody violating me. Pointing his good hand at Percy, his voice rose. Everybody knows I'm in good with the police. He never listens. Percy could hardly believe his bad luck. He told his father to wait in the car. Although they were cousins, neither godmother, especially like Porky. Although they were cousins, neither godmother, especially like Porky, though Patience did treat him better than most of the family members. Percy had hoped to put them in a good mood before he asked a favor of them, but Porky hadn't stuck to the agreed plan. So Percy hastily jumped to plan 2. He grinned like a Cheshire cat, hoping his 100-watt smile would charm his godmothers, as it always done. Percy turned to Patience and Joy, still smiling, hunching his shoulders, which meant he'd nothing more to add to what stood before them. I've delivered Dad to you ladies so you can handle your family business. What family business? Joy snapped. Percy had snatched away her rapidly prepared lecture with that remark. So she added, all I see is him standing there looking like he's been to a build-a-fool factory and wearing a stupid look. Plan 2 wasn't working like he thought it would, so Percy made up Plan 3 on the spot. His fingers shot out, pointing toward his father, who just stood there looking like he'd rather be somewhere else, which he would. That's family business standing over there. He's your cousin. Patience had had enough. Since keeping quiet was no longer an option, she met Percy's finger pointing with one of her own. So what? That's your father. Porky looked all around the room before finally asking, what am I, invisible? He might as well have been invisible because they didn't bother to answer him. No matter whose father he is, godmother, he's your problem now. I did my part earlier when I took him down to the precinct, filled out the report, and brought him back here, like he insisted. Although Lord knows why he'd want to come here. It's not like you're close like most family or Christians would be. What Percy said was true. Joy wasn't particularly fond of her only male first cousin, Porky. Twice he'd gotten what she'd wanted, a child, and when their grandmama Truth passed away, he'd gotten a family Bible too. But that's a little bit of introducing Porky.
Okay, and that's in Sister Betty, God's Calling You Again?
No, this is in Holy Mayhem, the new book.
Oh, okay, Holy Mayhem. Okay. Well, folks, as you can tell, it is very funny, and it will keep you in stitches. Now, I want to shift gears for a minute, Pat. Mm-hmm. Pat used to be a former member of a group called Arlene and the Chantels And
only
another group
Smith and the Chantels.
In the Chantels and Fantasy.
Mhm.
So you sing too?
No, I sang too. No, the reason I say that is because I had a bout of acid reflux, and it damaged my vocal cords.
Okay.
So I no longer sing.
Okay.
But I still run my mouth.
Hey, you're good at it. Well, Pat, I thank you for being on the show. Please tell our audience where they can find you online and where they can purchase Holy Mayhem and all your other books.
Well, you can find me online at www.patgeorgiawalker.com or www.sisterbetty.com, where you can find a video clip or read, other things about me, as well as purchase some of the skits that I've written, because there are skits based on practically all of my books, which, people can use for their fundraisers or church activities or whatever. Also, for my Christmas book that's out now, No Ordinary Noel, they can find that in the bookstore. It makes a great Christmas present, as does all of my books. But people are fascinated to learn that in No Ordinary Noel, Sister Betty gets proposed to.
Ooh. So if you don't get married down the line, and you don't want to reveal that.
Well, we'll see. Because in 2013, my next book, which is called Sister Betty Says I Do, will be coming out. And we'll see how it worked out. And for all the B and Sasha fans, yes, those two old crones are still picking on her last nerve, and they've determined that they're going to throw her a wedding reception. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, Lord. And honestly, I don't think there's a man that could put up with Sister Betty. I'm sorry.
Well, once you read No Ordinary Noel, you'll see, you'll meet a character by the name of Trustee Freddie Noel.
Is that on Kindle?
It's on Kindle.
Okay,
and Freddie Noel is a virgin.
Oh, okay. How old is Freddie Noel?
Sasha likes to say he ain't seen none, he ain't had none. He don't even know what it looked like. But Sister Betty feels he's the perfect man for her.
Okay, well, I'm getting ready to go to Amazon and get my copy of No Ordinary Noel. And please go out and support Pat and her books. And, Pat, thank you for being on the show. It's been my pleasure, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Well, Yolanda, I thank you for having me. I know that there are good things coming your way because of the way that you give. And as long as you keep that giving spirit, you will always be in God's plan. And I pray nothing but good things for you.
Thank you so much, and I pray the same for you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, and you have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.